Inspiration Nation. Hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on a podcast with my very good friend Jose Noya. Ryan once again is absent for this week, but we are reassured he will be back making us a threesome. You know what I mean, that sort of thing next week. Joe, how are you? And more importantly, what are we going to discuss this week?
Well, this week we are going to be talking about assumptions, why you should never assume. And so assumptions are the killers of all human communication, really, when we assume lots of different things. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the reason I've chosen this as well is because it's been really popular on our YouTube shorts, and we talked about Stephen Covey the previous week. And so assumptions, we can assume lots of things. We go into conversations. We can assume what people are doing, what people are, who people are, without actually finding out who they are and what they're about, or even if they have an opinion where that comes from. So I really think it's an important piece because, even best friend in the world, I might do something or be speaking to someone and assume lots of different things. And I think it goes back to what you were talking about, Lee. One of the big things that you were talking about in the podcast, this year and last year was about judgment. And I think judgment is the thing that kills people, along with assumptions. And I think assumptions is another one that goes alongside that. So I suppose the question is on this one, how can we avoid assuming? How can we make sure that we are really listening to the person that we're talking to and not assume anything about them until we actually find out anything, but actually wait for them to respond in a way which reveals where it comes from and why. So really seeking to understand people rather than jumping to any sort of assumptions or conclusions. So that's what the subject matter is going to be. Have you got initial thoughts on that, Lee? I know because you worked hard on judgment, but assumptions is probably quite similar, but I'd like to know your thoughts.
I'd just like to prattle out as well, Joe, and say that assuming makes an arse out of you and me. Which I know that's corny. That always sticks in my head though, as a thing, because I do think it's, like you said, it's a dangerous thing to do. And there's quite a few different examples spring to my head of this, where for all different things, you can assume someone's motivations, you can assume what they're driving for, you can assume someone's background, for example, or even assume that they haven't got a background, so to speak. So, you might want to impart some knowledge onto someone, but it might be a subject that they've got far more knowledge about than you. Yeah, that was right. Don't know why I stopped myself there. Sounded like I was misspeaking. But, you could presume that they know nothing about something, go into, a spiel about something, and actually it might be something they could learn from you on, or you just, you go into a conversation wrong ways. It ties in a lot to the listening thing you said as well, I think, where you said you're just, you're waiting for your turn to speak rather than listening and assessing and understanding. But I wanted to throw in with you on that as well, because I think listening is an important part of that, and reacting rather than prejudging what you're going to do, or just driving your own agenda. But do you think questioning is an important part of that as well? Because I think there's a listening, but if you want to find out if something you're going to say is going to be of benefit to someone, or they've got something to say benefit of you, or understanding their motivations, anything in that sphere, I think sometimes what you've got to do before you even go into a conclusion, if you like, if that's the right word, try and find out, investigate, if you like, what makes that person tick, what's their background, what are they looking to get out of this interaction, which again, you've then got to listen and respond and react to the answers. But the same as you might assume, maybe that person's doing the same on the other end, and actually the skill isn't just on you to not assume and listen and react and make sure you're involved in the conversation, but maybe you need to draw that out of them as well, and you need to get the information out of them they might not otherwise offer, because they might assume you already know it, or it's not even their sphere to talk about it. So chunking, I'd call it, in an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming sort of way, where you start to find out and you be a bit inquisitive, and then you engage in that conversation in the right way based off of what you've then found out. It's a bit of a rambly answer, but I'm quite tired and I've drunk some gin, so they're going to be my excuses.
Oh, really?
In fact, I'll drink a little bit more gin right now while you respond to me.
So you got the Ginningtons, gin o'clock. Yeah, so I agree. I think, yeah, Ginningtons, quite like that. So thinking about what you're saying as well, questions are really important. I think because when we maybe are hearing something we maybe don't agree with, questions are a great way to challenge rather than assuming or judging their answer. So one of the things that I encourage when people, maybe are struggling with something they're being told is ask questions. So things like, what's the impact of that if we do that? So what you're doing is you're understanding why they're saying what they're saying and why they're meant to be maybe pushing on a certain point. And it could be there's pressures on them. It could be anything, right? So questions are really powerful in terms of, and actually I could use them more. And I always look back and I think I could use them more. So, instead of actually saying, oh, I don't agree with that, or can I challenge that? I would probably ask, my training for me, my own development is ask a question. Like I said, what is the impact? If we did that, what would happen? What's potential outcomes? I want to just see whether, where it's coming from, but also whether my thinking's aligned with their thinking and whether there's any potential ground for like the win-win we talked about with Stephen Covey as well. Like, because in every interaction, and as you said, Lee, I think you did it in your journal that you want to leave every interaction and leave people in a better place than when you found them, yes. Right? I think that's what you had, right? Now, the only way to do that is we can all go on this path to say, I'm going to go and treat people and I'm going to leave them in a better place. But when that's okay when it's easy, right? That's okay when we are agreeing with people. When we share a similar thinking thought set, or we're quite similar types of people, the challenge comes when you don't agree with somebody. How do you still reach that point of leaving them in a better place, right? So, and I think the best place to do that is through questions, to ask and really be open to their point of view, because actually they might have a valid point that you've not thought about and you just assume that your point is correct, and it may not be correct. And I think there's got to be a bit of humility in there as well, which can be quite challenging because we talked about on this podcast as well about the ego and how that can get involved. So there are a couple of things in interactions. Is one, part the ego, two, ask questions, and three, find out where they're really coming from and be prepared to learn. Because you just never know, and we can assume a lot of things. So I'll tell you a little story. I was having an interaction with someone, and as you may not know, or may know, I'm really passionate about coaching.
Really?
You might know that.
I've never noticed this about you before.
You might know.
Never noticed this.
So anyway, I was having a meeting with someone, and it was a really subtle. Well, they were really kind actually, and when I start, start talking about coaching and start to think about I want to implement coaching in wherever I am at this point in time in my life. I really want it to work. I can get a bit impassioned, and sometimes, and Lee's experienced this, and I mentioned on the podcast before, Lee's experienced this impassionment, and actually Lee admitted he does it himself as well sometimes. We all do it if we're really passionate about something. And anyway, go on, Lee, you're going to say something. Did you say something?
No. I was agreeing through my eyes with you, Joe.
Oh, okay, I thought I heard something. And and we was having this conversation, and it got on to the subject of coaching. And of course, I was helping out. I was delivering some deliverables for them as a stakeholder, and we got on the subject of coaching, and we talked about what a coaching culture looks like and all that. And I was thinking, yes, we need to do this, and we should be doing this, and we really need to sort of measure the coaching. And I was almost assuming that they didn't know really about coaching. And I reflected on this conversation, and they turned around to me and they said this. They said, "I'm actually an accredited coach." And I went, "Oh shit."
Whoa,
I was,
whoa.
Yeah.
Note for the record, Jose Noya
Yep.
has sworn there. I
want to be real. I want to be real about
I
it.
encourage
I want to be real about it, because that's where I assumed, and that's the thing that a danger point for me is that when I hear people talk about coaching, I might almost assume go to people who don't really they're not really in the circles sometimes that sometimes I'm saying things that people already know, and I'm not aware that they're doing that, and that's what I need to be aware of. So I want to share that learning with everybody, that we should really be, and when they really be open to that, and when they said that, I immediately stopped talking about it. Said, "Oh, it's brilliant," and I did, and I said that's fantastic, and then we had a good conversation about how we could do it better, wherever we are, right? So that was a case in point, and I think when I went to I didn't really know much about them. Well, the thing is, actually, I did know a bit about them, because when they first came to the business that I work for, I gave them a rundown on the expertise that I had, not in coaching, but in another area of the business that I have expertise, and Lee knows what it is. And so I explained how that industry works. And so I think what I've done, and it's a bit of a self-reflection itself, that I've assumed, because they weren't aware of the information there, that I've assumed a lack of knowledge in other areas, which I was totally wrong about. So that's what we've got to be very careful. So that's what I'd say on that point. So that sort of comes up with that piece of discussion, that we can really assume when we can be a real danger point, and it can really disrupt relationships. And I really did make an effort after that to really engage, because I didn't want to. This person's a really nice person as well, and they're very on point with people development. So I want to maintain the relationship. So in the end, it was a great relationship. And actually today, I did deliver a session to their stakeholders, and I'm waiting for some feedback. So I'm helping them deliver. So what I want to do is continue to build that relationship, invest in that emotional bank account. But that could have easily become an unslip if I wasn't aware of that in that moment. So when someone says that to you, you really need to step back and really sort of own that and go, oh, okay, great. So that's what I'd just say on that, Lee. I don't know. I think that was a little bit of a story that's happened to me very recently, and I think it's important to share the lessons. So anything come out of that for you?
I think that's very... Well, first of all, Joe, you said that I know a different type of expertise that you'd have been talking about, and I'm not sure I'm aware of any expertise you have. So you're putting presumptions in my mouth there. How did you feel after? I know you said, and you dropped the S-bomb about how you felt when it happened, but what was the immediacy of the conversation with the person after that revelation?
Oh, it was absolutely. We just talked about how we can implement it better. Like, we started talking on a level where we were both sharing our passion for coaching, which was great, right? So we could encourage each other to share those ideas. So in fact, it's resulted in probably both of us being advocates for coaching in the business, right? So that we know now. Actually, now I've got an idea, actually, because I've just started a coaching community where I am, and I need to invite them to it. So literally, I've got 100+ people in this coaching community, so I'm going to invite them, and it's growing. Actually, I only started it. When did I start it? I started it this week. Maybe a couple of days ago.
Look at this, exciting stuff.
So I don't know. I don't have shared that with you, but it's really exciting. There's people that have dropped out of it, but there's people that want to join. So I'm really gathering people that are really wanting to really have a coaching mindset and culture, and that's important because let's be honest. There's going to be some people that are going to enjoy coaching. Some people aren't going to enjoy coaching, or not. They enjoy it, but they don't really want to talk about it or be involved in communities or forums, right? But they still will support it, but they don't necessarily want to have messages coming through around coaching all the time. So I'm collecting the people that do want that, and so we can all develop something that's going to really help where I am at the minute. And I'm really excited by it, to be fair. But this person, I need to invite them to it, so I'm going to write that down
right now.
I'm going to write that down before I forget, because I've got my plan for tomorrow. I'm going to just reach out. That's really good. That's a really good self-reflection there. Thank you, Lee, for that reflective question. That's what coaching does, though.
Good questions. I was today, actually, it's funny you say this. I was in a workshop today with a guy who's a business analyst. And they're trained to draw information out of people. And the thing you said, the exact question you asked earlier as an example, which was, what is the impact if we do this? He asked me that 2 or 3 different times in different ways as we're having this conversation, and it was really good, because you always have this risk of what you call assumed knowledge, where you work somewhere or you work in a type of work or in a business, or like me, both, for ages, and certain things become second nature that aren't second nature to people who aren't in the bubble, so to speak. And he was really good at getting me to explain it out without me necessarily realising that's what I was doing. And it's a real, like you said, it's a real skill to be able to draw information from people. And it struck me when you said that question. I was like, I've been asked that today. And you can see it in the work the person does, because they're brilliant at getting, understanding what people or businesses need or want, and getting out the information and being able to digest that and actually play that back to you or play it back to other people. And I think it's a core skill, and I think it ties in with this. And not making assumptions is why they have that question kind of asking mentality drilled into them. You also said a bit earlier about it's easy when you're with someone who thinks like you do, but it's more difficult when it's not. And I became very consciously aware of this years ago, where I think I would struggle with people who didn't think the same way. That I'm much more cognizant that it's okay to disagree, in that it's okay for me to not agree with what someone else says, and it's okay for them to not agree with what I say. And in fact, so much so that I find myself now sometimes almost subtly reassuring them that it's okay. Disagreeing isn't a bad end to that thing. It's good to have different viewpoints and good for striving for different things. And I think the first thing you have to do is accept not everyone is going to agree with you, and then that you're not going to agree with everyone else. But that's not a problem. Because I like to think with my views I've been right a lot of the time, but I've also been wrong a lot of the time. And this thing I'm disagreeing on could be one of those things. Who knows? But it's, unless it impacts what you're doing, it's not a problem for that disagreement, so to speak. And even then, someone else's point of view might just give you a bit more awareness of a risk or a concern or something else to look at. And it might not steer you in a different direction, but it just adds to your consciousness and your kind of, I suppose, full picture of whatever it is that you're looking at. So that, like you said, Joe, how it works with different viewpoints, different opinions, and going away with different opinions is good. It's all one big experiment, and you're right until you're wrong, or you're wrong until you're right. It doesn't matter which way around you look at it, really. But you're only right about what you're saying for as long as you are right, and it's important not to necessarily, die on every hill just because it's your viewpoint.
Yeah, I remember using that before, actually. And I mean, I love that viewpoint, and I say it's something important, because we can get in echo chambers, can't we? And then we restrict our actual expansion of knowledge, really. So, really important. I just wanted to give a little shout out as well. Someone, I can't, on TikTok, just someone, is it Monafake got number one gifter?
Oh, number one gifter. I saw that pop up. Yes, fantastic.
Yeah. And Joe says, hello, what do you do for a living? Well, what do I do for a living? I do this. This is one of my main things, together with my job. I'm a trainer, coach. So yeah, thanks for the questions, by the way. That's on TikTok. I just thought I'd answer the question because it's been asked.
That's fantastic. Well, while you mention it, just shout out to people. Every week you can join us live. This week we're going a bit freestyle because I was working away from my home office. Joe was doing something else that held us up a bit. So we, rather than our usual 6 o'clock slot, we started about 7:30. Again, if you follow Joe on TikTok, @Noya_Inspiration Nation, or just follow us on YouTube, just search for Jose Noya Inspiration Nation. Hit subscribe, follow, whatever the button is on either one of those platforms, you will get notified when we are going live. It is once a week. It's normally about 6 o'clock. We're a bit off piece now. And of course, you can find us on each and every podcast platform. New episodes coming out Friday. But if you want to get in on it early and interact with what we're doing, again, follow, subscribe, YouTube and TikTok, and you'll get to see us live.
Yeah, I love that.
As Joe swears.
Yeah, well, I just want to be real on that thing. It's just, just so the actual emotion at the time was going, it was really difficult. It was like, I better draw back. It's like having that emotional intelligence to go, I'll put my foot right in that. I just really walked into that. And just recognising it.
And it happens. I think this is a great example where we will talk about this stuff, but it doesn't mean we're on it all the time and we're perfect with it. And, everything, like that. It's everything is a chance to reflect and learn and better yourself, and all of us will get it wrong sometimes as part of the process.
Yeah, and I think that's what the key is that we're open to that, and I think that's what we want to help. It's what we want to sort of relate it to you guys here, who you're listening and watching. That you are always you're gonna get things wrong sometimes, and it's what you learn at that point, and being open and parking your ego to go, do you know what, I was wrong there, and making sure you do it. So I just wanted to just go back on your point, Lee, about meeting people that don't agree with you. And there's a lovely YouTube channel. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. Maybe TikTok and YouTube and the lovely listeners we've got on our podcast. Have you ever heard of Pursuit of Wonder? Have you heard of Pursuit of Wonder?
I have not. Is this the name of the channel?
I have. It's a channel on YouTube. I have sent you a little bit of a. I keep sending emails, don't I? And one of those emails, it was off that channel. It was a philosophical channel, but it's got a really interesting YouTube video about if everybody thought the same and had the same beliefs and no one challenged each other, and how society would fare. And I loved it because it basically said that the message was, if everyone just agreed with each other and there was no essentially disagreement, then eventually society would just die because it would just be everyone think the same. I thought it was a really good video. In fact, I'll try and dig it out, Lee, and I'll send it to you. It was a really eye-opening moment to say, actually, we do need disagreement. So going back to assuming, and we can assume that people think like us, but they don't. They're going to challenge us. Of course they will. Will we never get a challenge? No, of course we're always going to get a challenge. At some point we're going to get a challenge. But remember this, it's good that we don't agree on everything, because that's what creates that variety. So us assuming things, actually, when you put on the table, if we assume and then we get a disagreement, actually that wakes us up to go, oh, actually, maybe I wasn't right. So maybe when we assume, there's a sort of opposite to that, saying, oh, because I assumed, I feel, oh, I've just got taken aback by that, or someone's, almost like, you're wrong, but actually it's woken us up to say, oh, actually there could be a point here. So I think that's a really, really good tail end of that actually maybe we have assumptions built in, because maybe that's what we need to be woken up out of the assumption to learn something new, right? I got no, but it's a really good video. I'm going to encourage people to go watch it. It's got lots of thought experiments on there, butterfly effect, all that sort of stuff that I know Lee loves a bit of butterfly effect.
Indeed. But
it's got some really, really talks about philosophy, all sorts, and I'm giving him a shout out. Really is good. And I discovered it by chance, and as I say, definitely worth a check out, and especially on that assumptions thing where where you assume everyone's thinking like you. They're not. That could be actually a really good piece of video for you to watch. I'll try and dig it out. But I'll send it. I'll see if I can get it to you, Lee. All right.
Absolutely.
But that's me and done, I think.
I might stick a link in the comments to the show, so if you are watching this at some point in the future from now when we're recording, hopefully that link will be in the comments right now.
Yeah. So big takeaway, Lee, from this conversation.
Yours was burger and chips earlier, wasn't it, Jay?
It was very nice too. Yeah, burger and chips and a bit of what's it called? Dough. Was it called?
Dough balls.
Dough balls. That's it. I couldn't think of the word. It's definitely affected me, I think.
Yeah, which definitely is not the reason we're recording later right now, is it, Jay?
It's nice when we do it earlier, isn't it? We're in the zone. Yeah, but it's good. I think this is more. I think the pace of this is more. Well, definitely for me, it's definitely a slower pace. Actually, it might be that I feel a little bit more thoughtful and reflective. But I definitely feel the energy.
The food.
Yeah, definitely feel the energy is different. Yeah, the food, definitely. But is there any big takeaways from you, Lee?
Yeah, I think, and I know it's what I said, but I think it's reinforcing in my head the whole it's okay to disagree thing. I think that's really important, and I think it ties in with the overall assumptions message is, you've got to you have to be aware of other viewpoints and listen to them. And in fact, rambling on now, we need disagreement. It's a good thing. That's what encourages growth and innovation and change. That's my big takeaway. All those things lead into that statement, and that's what's really resonated in my mind with this, is actually the positivity of disagreement. If anything, you should actively encourage it in your life.
So Lee, that's really interesting you saying that, because it reminds me, because you love innovation, don't you? And I think you showed me a video once where innovation requires friction.
Yes, I did. I remember that, yeah.
And I remember that video, and it talks about you have to have that friction so you create new ideas. So it's like you have that pushback to create it. So it really does go full circle, doesn't it? So look at that, how assumptions
Absolutely.
really kicks into innovation. And we didn't really think of that before we came on the cast today, did we? We thought, wow, that's really quite yeah, that's even taking my takeaway to another new level, is that you need friction, you need that to come up with new ideas, new ways of thinking. And Stephen Covey talks about, oh my God, Lee, that's just that's next week, or the podcast next is Synergy. I've just remembered off the book.
Look at
Synergy,
that. It all ties together.
Synergy, which is the next chapter of the book. And I just remember, it's weird how this has kicked in. Literally, synergy is about when you have an idea, someone disagrees with it, but you build on the idea and the idea innovates, and that's what synergy. I'm sure that's what that next chapter is about. I have read it lots of times before, but it's a bit sketchy, so I have to reread it. But I will be rereading it for the next time. Yeah, go on, Lee. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say spoilers for next episodes. I love it, Joe. That's brilliant. So,
well, I'm just Well, when you listen, you'll get a spoiler, but if you don't listen, you'll be a surprise. So, either way, we'll still win.
Any more to add before I wrap us up here, Jose?
No, it's good. I've just got a hello. How are you, friend? How are you? Hello, A. I don't know your full name, but you've got A on TikTok. But no, that's everything from me. I'm just giving little shout outs to people on there. So thank you for liking it, and thank you for coming on and spending your valuable time with us here tonight.
We appreciate it. Half an hour of people's time. We know that is a lot to give up, so we do appreciate those that watch, listen, download, all that great stuff. Again, just quickly, TikTok and YouTube, you can join us live each and every week. Just hit subscribe and follow j_Noya_inspiration, or search for Jose Noya Inspiration, or follow us on Twitter at ListenToin, listen TOIN. You can find links to absolutely everything on there to the podcast. And if you're on a podcast player right now, hit subscribe, hit like, tell friends and family. They are all the things that help us grow organically as a podcast. I nearly ran out of breath there. I need to breathe between my sentences, Joe.
Breathe, Lee, breathe.
And of course, head over to inspirationnation.org.uk for all your merchandise, hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, etc., all there, inspirationnation.org.uk. And most importantly, you can sign up to Jose's weekly newsletter there as well. Just drop us your email address and Joe will add you to that ever-growing list.
Just to shout out, A is actually called Andrew. So welcome, Andrew, and thank you for listening.
Appreciate you out there very
appreciate
much,
Andrew.
so.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Yep.
Right, I think I shall just count us down, Joe, and we will be back next week. 3, 2, 1.
Go on, then. Inspiration Nation.
Catch you guys later.
Thank you. Thank you, TikTok. Thank you, Andrew.